Welcome to the Airbnb Blueprint Podcast, your go-to training hub for building your very own Airbnb business. In each episode, we break down the exact blueprint that helps us build a multi-six-figure Airbnb business from scratch, and we'll show you how to do the same. Continue learning with us for free in the Airbnb Blueprint coaching community on Facebook. Find the link in our show notes below. Commit, believe, succeed. Let's go. Welcome back to another episode. Thanks for joining us. We're here again, and we've got the fantastic Pooh in the studio with us. How you doing, brother?
Hello, I'm good. What's up, man?
Yeah, good to see you, mate. Thanks for joining again. All right, so we spoke a little while ago. We got quite deep into lead generation, and lead generation specifically now around building up that client base of deals that we can then sell on to other hosts. And we kind of take this position of sitting in the middle and basically becoming our own little mini OTA, which is, as we've said before in previous episodes, but for any new listeners who are joining us, this podcast now is all very specific to lead generation, bringing in deals for companies that are looking for accommodation. Then we'll go outsource that accommodation and we'll basically become the middleman and we'll take our commission. So no longer really the rent-to-rent stuff. We do believe that the ship has kind of sailed with that saturation points here in the UK. So this is where the smart money is. So this is now what we're talking about in the podcast. So Pooh, following on from the lead generation thing, why don't we lead a little bit more into how do we determine who and who not to work with? Because we can't be taking every single deal that comes our way, right?
Well, ideally, I would say we would love to convert every single lead into money. We want to keep every client and make them happy. But of course, once you have generated a lot of leads, right? And then at some point, there's going to be something that it could be a bit shady, but it could be hard to prove. And that's the part where, a lot of due diligence have to come in. We're going to have to do a lot of due diligence on who our clients are and as much as we can. And then with our partners as well. So it's a two-sided that we have to be looking at, not just, let's say, our clients or just the partners.
I would think that most of the emphasis when it comes to doing due diligence would be on the partner as opposed to the actual lead or contractor company or corporate lead that's come in. But you're saying that we need to put as much emphasis on both sides.
On both sides, yes, I would say. I mean, if you have, people that have stayed with you before and they are in your contact list book, then that's one of the way that you have kind of nurtured them. You have, kind of verified them to a certain degree. So that is okay. In terms of lead generations to a lot of market, at some point you're going to attract, as much as you like to stay within your ideal clients, at some point there's going to be some shady people that's going to come into your life. You can't stop it because at some point they will see you. And when they see you, they're going to try to make something out of you.
Just give us a real life example of why a contractor company or a corporate company or someone would pretend to be one of these companies. What benefit would they get from using us to source accommodation from them?
Let's take a step back and let's say, most of the time the contractor companies, the big companies, you don't really have any problems with because they are pretty much accredited by, what they do. There's going to be a few like smaller subcontractor companies that could be a point where they're trying to book with you and then they don't pay you the money up straight, and if you have the relationship with them, they said, look, you've been working for a while, you can pay me a little bit later, but then they started to fall on that payment and it started to snowball, from that on. That could be one of the problems. But because sometimes we're trying to be as accommodating as much as we can. So sometimes we have to assess, we have to be quite lenient with people that we work with as well. Sometimes we don't have to, yes, we want to take the money up front to make sure everything's all clear. but sometimes there could be some delays, can be some logistic. If you put out a post to say, look, I need accommodation today, but then it's already past 5 o'clock, right? And then we managed to get a unit with other people,
Mm,
it might not be able to work on that day because the finance just does not go through.
right.
So that could be a situation like that we have to trying to accommodate with our clients and with our partners as well, to make sure that everything's all smooth up, and make sure that we can proceed. But that's where the due diligence have to come in,
Yeah.
because if you don't know who they are, right, and then you decided to put up with your clients, with your partners, and then it turned out to be a dodgy one, oh my goodness, that's where another different kind of worm that's going to be open. So
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good point. And it's one of those examples, isn't it, of with any business, like previously in the rent to rent stuff, you're in the classroom, you're in, in the with the training provider in there, and it's all made to sound so easy and so smooth. But in reality, it's not. It's absolute. It's actually the complete opposite, and just a never-ending fucking nightmare of disasters a lot of the time, that you're constantly putting out fires. Whereas with this, you could sell it the same as well, where it's just very easy, very just go and find a lead, find the host, put them together, take the 15%. But that's a real example of something that's probably incredibly common, and we get a lot of inquiries come in last minute, don't we, from companies saying we need a 4-bed house, immediately, and the first thing you think of is, why have you left it until 3 p.m. on the day that you need one of these places?
yeah,
But that is the exact kind of thing that happens.
that's
And
the
then
reality.
that's the reality. And then
Yep.
you're right. You're in the position where you've found a property. They've said, yeah, we can do it. The price is good. The price is right. They're happy with the property. But in reality, the host and us, or the people that are listening, are not going to receive the money before the contractors are in that property.
Correct.
So how
Because
can
the
we?
finance department have closed.
They've
For the
closed.
day.
They're already in the pub. And what's worse is this could be on a Friday evening. So the company might say, "Look, we're not able to pay you until early next week." How do we contractually protect ourselves against that scenario?
It's a little bit of the difficult questions, because sometimes if we were to be in that situations, we might have to bite a bullet at some point, providing that we have done all the due diligence and everything, and we are clear with our partners and with our clients. If we can negotiate with our partner to say, look, this is the situation that I'm in, are we okay to make the payment on Monday as per the terms? Would that be possible? Some partners would be like, if you have worked with them before, they'll be like, yeah, no problem, it's okay, we understand it's quite late for the moment, we can put the guys in, no problem, and then we wrapped up the rest on Monday. But for those that we haven't really worked with, that could be a point where we have to put the upfront monies, and then we invoice the company, the clients, to get paid on Monday, if that was the case. And then, just basically get them in first. So there's been a couple, situations that have to happen like that because of the time restrictions, I would say.
There are elements of risk to this business. You're talking about you're basically fronting the payment, right?
Correct.
And then,
Yes.
so in order to do that, you're now paid, you're out of pocket. How can you guarantee that the company is going to pay you? It always comes back to due diligence, isn't it? So what are some of the key points of that due diligence? For example, let's say it's not a, Balfour Beatty or, Virgin Media, right? And it's a small little independent company.
Mm-hmm.
What's some of the things that we got to make sure we do every time? For example, go and look them up on Companies House, make sure the information that they're giving you is accurate, stuff like that.
For us, I would say, if it's like a smaller company and we have come to that situation, all I ask them to do is, can you just do a bank transfer to me straight away? It takes 1 minute to do. This is my invoice, just transfer it straight away. You guys can go in, no problem, and we can wrap it up straight. So but if it's a big corporate company, that's when you have to put up the invoice, send it to the finance, with the procurement team, get the PO number, everything all wrapped up nicely, then get paid for the payroll that's coming out. So smaller company have more flexibility, and especially if you deal with like smaller subcontractors, you deal with directors directly, and that's when, if they want to go in, they need to pay up for it.
And what about when they say, because a lot of the time they might say, oh, we can't do a bank transfer. We can only pay with the company credit card.
I always insist on bank transfer. So because company credit cards, there can be, some clawback, there can be some issue here and there. We don't want to deal with that. And also the credit cards would take, let's say if they pay through Stripe would take another, chunk of charge out.
And
eats
time
into,
before they'll pay out, right?
Yep. Stripe has an option that, that can pay the next day now if you're quick, or you can be, a couple of days away. But I always insist on bank transfer straight away. So
yeah. And like you said, if it's the bigger companies, then, you're pretty sure that that you're going to get paid and everything's going to be done the right way.
We've dealt with a lot of, big organizations, and we've never been let down by any one of them. So
yeah.
Big corporate might pay you a little bit later, but you have to explain to them that, look, there's a certain degree that we can hold this for you to make it work. And most of the time, these big companies will pay up to. No question asked.
Let's move over now to the host. We've had a lead come in. We put the offer out on all the portals that we've spoken about, how to try and, source these partners. And, someone comes back, yep, I've got that 5-bed in Leeds, exactly in your postcode. I've got availability. What's some of the first steps we do in order to make sure that they are actually legit?
Well, we always check them out first. We're going to have to snoop them out to say that, are they real people? Are they real company? You can go on Company House. You can go on. First thing I would do is I'll go to Airbnbs. I always ask for Airbnb listings and check out the reviews, check out who they are. And then, reach out to them and then speak with them directly. If they're like super hosts, then it's even better, because at least you know that they took their time, to take care of their clients, which is a better thing. I know there's a lot of fake listing out there, but it's hard to fake listings with substantial number of reviews behind them.
Let's do this role play. I'm your partner. I've replied to your post that I've seen. Hey, Pooh, I've got this 5-bed in Leeds. Perfect. Exactly in your postcode. But, we've only got one property. It's a place I inherited. I've got a full-time job. I'm not on any of the OTAs. I just put a few flyers around, and it's all in my personal name. I don't have a company. So you good with that?
Nope.
What do you mean, no?
Well, if we can't, if we can't have a conversation, if we can't have, if you can't show any proof that, you are legitimate in any way, we can't do business together. I need to be able to see the property. I need to be able to verify yourself. But if you can't pass the first step of due diligence, then it's a no-go. It's simple as that. And then we move on to the next person.
Okay.
Because we don't have time to be talking to people like for an hour or something, right?
Yeah.
We have a lot of people to scan through. So if one person's not direct to you, let him go. Talk to the next one straight away.
Because I think the temptation with this is when you're starting, you get that first lead and you're like, whoa, I've got a lead. I've got a lead. And if it's a substantial lead, let's say they say, yeah, we need this 5-bed and we need it for 8 months. We've got this big job coming up. You put the offer out, and I reply to that. There's a good chance that someone is going to take that, because they're excited, right? And they want to get the deal over the line. So you let your guard down on the due diligence. It's the equivalent in the rent-to-rent game would be, when that agent offers you that rat-infested cesspit, property, right? Yeah. That needs a 60 grand refurb, and you've been looking for a rent-to-rent for the last year and a half, you grab it. And then after a few weeks, you want to blow your brains out.
Well, I think the thing is when we get the leads coming and you understand the requirements. So when you put the post out, in a way that is simple, that is kind of eye-catching to other people, you're not going to just take up the first offer on the first people that you speak with. You're going to have to speak to quite a few people to make sure that you understand the rate, it's reasonable, and it's fair to your clients and to the supplier as well. Because there's going to be a lot of hosts that kind of reach out to, they have reached out to us before, and they were like stacking crazy rates. They're trying to rip us off completely because they think that, you can just put another 15% on top with your clients. Mm-hmm. And, sometimes the properties are trading, let's say an average of £120 per night, just, for the sake of argument. These guys were coming back to us and they said, look, we're going to charge you £160 per night for the next 28 days. And we're like, are you serious? Because when I look around the rates, I look at your properties on booking.coms, on Airbnbs, I can get £110 per night.
So they're putting a different price to us than what's on the OTAs.
Correct, yes. And I trust me, like most of the time, people haven't really get a grip on their pricing either. They just come up, like from thin air. Today, I figure like 150 quid.
Today, I
take
feel
take
like
a look at you. I think you can go for 200.
yeah. You
You
got a
know,
nice watch on. It's
yeah,
$250 today.
exactly. Yeah. So there's no like consistency in that case, and this is where it's important to understand. Yes, we might not be an expert in the areas, but that's why you speak to quite a few operators, and you can gauge as well that take a look around on Airbnbs and Booking.coms. Scroll through like the first few pages. You get the idea what the pricing would be, like on an average.
Coming back to the due diligence part, we've had a conversation. We've checked out their Airbnb listing. They should really also, if they're, know what they're doing, probably also be on booking.com as well. Although I know some people don't deal with them because they are a absolutely goddamn awful company. So we've checked out the listing. We have a conversation. Is there anything else? Check them out on Company's House. Now, what about this? I'm a big believer in when you work with a partner for the first time, you pay them after our clients have arrived, checked into the property, and it's all been confirmed by the office, just to make sure that you're not going to end up being on the hook if you pay them out and that property isn't there when the guys arrive in their vans. You're on the hook for that money. So what's your thoughts around that? Obviously, once you've established the relationship and you work with them again, if they want to be paid before they arrive, then there's some flexibility.
But looking from both sides of the fence, right? I mean, obviously they look at you, they haven't worked with you before, so the trust is not quite there yet. So they'll be like, well, who are you in the first place, and who are you putting in my property? Because if you were to let somebody in straight away without paying, and they haven't done any work with us before, what if things turn sour? What if the person that went in decided not to leave and it started to become like a squatter, and then it just becomes like another mess that really, really difficult to get out.
Nobody gets paid, before they arrive through the OTAs, but they've got the protection of using Airbnb. So if, they know that if they don't get paid, they know they're going to get paid because it's Airbnb. Whereas with us, it's like,
well, I wouldn't say that. we are still going through a case. We're still going through a case of trying to get a refund back from Airbnb. So Airbnb is extremely quick to take money out of you. If something were to happen, they always protect the clients, the guests first. They don't really protect the partner. If the partner have to fight their ass off to get the money back. We have put through a claim. It was since July 24. We still haven't got the money back, for the stuff that their guests have messed up. Put the claim through Airbnb. It's been like a year now, It's still not resolved. So
yeah, and I'll tell a real brief, quick story about the situation that we had on a property just a few weeks ago, actually, with Airbnb, where, everybody that's doing this or they've got rent to rent or whatever should know that, you've got your base rate, let's say 4 people. And then for everybody over that, 5, 6, 7, 8, up to your maximum occupancy, you're going to charge extra per person for utilities, for linens, and etc. So obviously that's what we've got set through our channel manager, £25 extra per person over a base rate of 4. And we took a booking for, I think it was 10 nights for, I think it was 6 people, but the booking only paid us for 4. There were 6 guests, and the additional price per person was not on the booking. So I contacted Airbnb, what's going on, checked all my settings, everything was exactly as it should be. So I did nothing wrong. And I went to Airbnb and said, I'm missing hundreds of pounds here over the 10 nights, 50 quid a night for the extra 2 people. And their immediate reply was, you're connected to a channel manager. It's their fault, their issue, their mistake. So you need to talk to them, or you need to go to the client direct. And I said, well, I definitely can't go to the client direct because all they've done is they've just, put in the booking, made the booking. They're the customer, it's not their problem. If I go to them direct and say, you owe me an extra £300, off the platform, I'm going to get a shitty review
Mm.
and they're going to be pissed off, understandably. So I said, I'm not going to do that. So I went to our channel manager, and the channel manager said, showed us all the settings were right. Everything was synced. They spoke to the technical department. Everything was as it was. And they said, Airbnb's at fault here. And, so I'm stuck in the middle here, basically been shafted for doing nothing wrong. Went back to Airbnb. No, it's the channel manager. I've spoke to the technical department, the same story.
Yep.
And then eventually, after a few more days, I nearly fell over when this happened. Airbnb actually contacted me and said, we have found out that there was an issue and it's a problem on our end, and we're going to pay you the difference.
Okay, yeah, that's
and
good.
they paid out, and I couldn't believe it. But I just thought, that is an example of, if you're not watching this game with a very sharp eye, and if you don't know everything that's going on and what every booking's meant to work out to, you can just get screwed if it's
over again. It's the same with Booking.com too. I mean, there's
stacking
a lot
the
of
discounts.
Yeah, stacking the discounts is fine, but like if you go to the payout sections, and then there's always say additional charge, and you can't tell what they are.
Yeah, because it's so complicated.
And say, what is that charge for? Like, you have let it out the commission quite clearly, so that's fine. But right at the bottom, at the end, additional charge.
Yeah, well, it was a Tuesday and it was after 4:00. So
so it's that's why I think it's important to be able to generate a lot of leads ourselves. In a way, we use OTA as a gate opener, but at the same time, nurture your clients and then start to build the relationships and make a recurring revenues in a different ways. And I think that's the way forward for this game. So
yeah, well, you have more control, and maybe in the next episode we can talk about. I think some of the one of the biggest challenges around this business is, when you start selling lots of deals, is basically keeping on track of it. Like who owes what, how much money am I holding, who have I paid, who haven't I paid? Because you can tie yourself up in knots, and it's very easy to think, well, John comes forward and says, I need a place for 10 nights for 4 people. Okay, great. I find a place for 10 nights for 4 people. You pay me, I pay them. It's not always like that, because we just did one where it was different properties, different amount of nights. Some wanted to come these dates, some wanted to go those dates. They want to pay on this day, but not that day. And all of a sudden you've got loads of money in your account and you're like, shit, I can't remember who I've paid and how much I owe and how much I'm meant to keep.
It's to be organized, I would say, and keep tracks of the bookings, inquiries, and bookings that we convert. So that's really important.
Yeah, that, and then how do we protect ourselves? Partnership agreements, contracts. That's the other key point.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff, and it's as much as like we like to share it all on the podcast, I think it's not really doable, I would say. Because some of the stuff, I think it's really important to have a visual, like you need to be on screen and looking together.
And asking questions as they come up.
I think that's why, like when it comes to like our webinars or masterclass that we run, I think that's where it becomes a lot more, a lot easier to explain. So
you can there's loads of free information out there, this podcast, YouTube, there's endless stuff out there. But at the end of the day, guys, if you want to actually pull the trigger and start making money in this business and not get completely shafted and screwed over and end up losing money or losing someone else's money, more importantly, then at some point you need to pull the trigger and do some training. And if that is you, and if you're interested in this, and if you want to de-risk everything and get rid and out of this rent-to-rent nightmare that is all starting to topple over, then get involved.
Head to the show notes.
Head to the show notes. Click the link. We got lead magnets. We've got some lead magnets. We've got webinars. We've got all different kinds of trainings. We've got free downloads. So reach out. Let's get you started making some money without all the risk. Thanks for listening, everybody. And again, we'll see you next week on another episode of the Airbnb Blueprint Podcast. Take care.